Hey everybody, this is Norm DeVay with Copa Health, and it is February 4th, 2022. We are into the month of February, which happens to be the shortest month of the year. My brother next Friday will have a birthday, February 11th. We've got Valentine's Day coming up. It is the shortest month of the year, and I know that because 28 days is all February gives us, even though every once in a while they give us 29 days, and I was born on that 29th day in one of those years. So February is a very special month to me for many reasons, but also because it is Black History Month. And we have with us once again today a recurring guest here on the Copa Roundup, good friend of ours, Ken Mack, who is the Behavioral Health Services Housing Clinical Coordinator for Community Living Services. Ken, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Norm. Thank you so much. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, Ken. I am so glad to have you back on. I always enjoy talking to you. It used to be that, and I might have mentioned this in the past, that you and I would run into each other out in the parking lot a lot, and that's where we did most of our talking.
Absolutely.
But now in the days of COVID, that doesn't happen so much. So it's so good to see your smiling face and to hear your wonderful voice. So you're doing okay though, staying healthy. I know that a lot of people have been getting sick over December and January time period.
Yeah, I've been doing good. And I don't know if the last time we spoke, but my wife, who was fully vaccinated, she had both, COVID shots, and then she had the booster as well, and she still got, ended up, being tested positive for COVID. So, fortunately, because she had, all the shots, it wasn't as severe as it, potentially it could have been. So that's a good thing.
I'm grateful for that, and I'm glad that she's okay, and I'm glad that you're doing okay. So Ken, as I just mentioned, February is Black History Month, and that's why we have you on here to talk. But give me just a little bit of your take on Black History Month before we move into specifics.
Well, I think we kind of talked about a little bit of it last time we spoke. We kind of blended a little bit of it in with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and that celebration for January. And I kind of talked about, the history of Black history and how it came about, and how Carter G. Woodson was basically considered the godfather or the father of Black history. And it was just his efforts to focus on the history that Black people didn't really know about themselves at that time, because, for years, they were not allowed to read or to write or to congregate, and to learn about themselves. So he found that important to, kind of shine that light on our history.
Yeah, I know Carter G. Woodson. He actually started Black History Month. He was
Yes.
an NAACP leader. I know he was a historian and did a lot of great work. But hey, today I think you were talking to me earlier. You'd like to focus a little bit on a specific area of Black History Month, and why don't you go ahead and tell us about that?
Yes, absolutely. As I'm a musician myself, I play piano. I have my piano sitting right in front of me here, and a long time ago I used to play guitar as well. But I love music. I have a passion for music, and I just can't even imagine talking about the contributions that Black people have made to this country without mentioning the musical aspect of it, because it's so ingrained in today in our culture and in our society. Every form of music that you listen to, basically, it has its origins, in African American, culture. And as a country in America here, we only had the one form of music, which was Western classical music. The music from Mozart, Beethoven, Chopin, Bach, Tchaikovsky, Schubert, those type of which was great music. I've been to several classical music concerts, but truly American music, we didn't have that, and it was those origins, in the Black gospel, Mississippi Delta blues and jazz, which we can kind of thank for what we listen to today. And a lot of people don't realize, how the impact that, some of those early pioneers made in today's music. You have people like Robert Johnson, who was considered the godfather, of rock and roll. You know, a lot of people don't know him, but if you go back and look up some of these people, you know, and the blues is most of that started back in Mississippi, in um, and you know, the blues scale. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, blues scale, but it was non-existing prior to probably the turn of the 20th century. And it's a scale that you find today in every form of popular music that you listen to today. Is some form of that basic blues scale that began all those years ago. It's in all of our music. And so just from the blues aspect, you know, some of our top entertainers, they were highly influenced by this form of music. You know, and back in the day when Black people performed this music, it wasn't really allowed to be, you know, played in public arenas. So they had to kind of go underground. And because it was considered, you know, devil music or race music back in those days. And so it was the early, you know, rock musicians, you know, white rock musicians who actually started listening to this stuff, you know, and beginning to appreciate some of it. And so some of those early examples were Pat Boone. I don't know if you remember who Pat Boone was, but he kind of took some of that music and kind of sanitized it and made it more palatable for white audiences, because white audiences, for the most part, didn't have any type of, you know, understanding of what that was. And then you had a fellow come along by the name of Elvis Presley, who listened to that type of music on Beale Street in Tennessee, and he didn't make any type of effort to sanitize it. Of course, we know who Elvis Presley is. One of the most, you know, he's considered the father of rock and roll. But he took those influences that he discovered on Beale Street, and of course he made it his own. And of course, you know, he's one of the greatest entertainers that ever lived because of those influences.
Yeah, I was talking to you a while ago about specifically Elvis Presley and his song Hound Dog.
Mm-hmm.
And now, can you tell us a little bit about the origins of that?
And blue suede shoes. You know, those were songs that were originally by a Black female, believe it or not. We just said her name. Remind me to get her name.
Yeah, let me. It was Mama
yes,
Thornton.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Those were songs that Elvis Presley took and made them his own, and they became big hits because he made them his own, and he brought them to a wide public audience, and they were more accepted then. So those influences, Elvis Presley was huge, and not only Elvis, he was influenced by them, but people like Muddy Waters, who was like pioneer guitar player, and people like Bob Dylan, the Beatles, Eric Clapton. They were highly influenced by these. And so when you had that influence from those European artists that came over here, their influence was from those individuals. And that's just from the blues aspect of it. And so when you get into the jazz genre, people like Frank Sinatra, who we all know who he was highly, he had two main influences, and that was Bing Crosby being one of them, and then Billie Holiday being the other. Billie Holiday was a jazz singer, Black jazz singer back in the day, and she was known for her very expressive and emotive phrasing. And if you listen to Frank Sinatra, his phrases, his diction, the way he sang the music, you could feel it. And that's what blues and jazz and gospel is all about. Whereas the classical musicians, it was about technical, technical skills. You had to play that music the way that the author, the composer, wrote it. So it was about the technical skills to play that music in a way that was that's very highly skilled. But the jazz, it was and blues, it was more about how that music made you feel. And so that's why it took on here in such a way that it did.
Yeah, it really hits you kind of in the gut because I remember obviously growing up, I heard Elvis Presley's version of Hound Dog, and then the first time I think I ever heard Big Mama Thornton's version of it was actually in the movie A Few Good Men, and it was just kind of odd because I heard it and I'm like, wow, that's really something. I went back and listened to that, but you know, you're right, the influence is just amazing when you talk about Muddy Waters or Howlin' Wolf or
Hmm.
some of those people that are just legends, especially in Mississippi and Alabama and places like that. Now that led into, you know, a big movement in Detroit too, right?
Yep, yep. All of this stuff, you know, when you talk about the Motown sound, that all derived from those early pioneers of, you know, of R&B and jazz and that type of music. It all, you know, without those early pioneers, music as we know today, it would be non-existent. And primarily, like I said earlier, that the blues scale alone is evident in mostly every form of music that we listen to today, and it's had a huge impact on our culture overall.
So one of the ways, and I always ask, you know, how people can celebrate certain holidays, certain, you know, months when they're being celebrated. I know next week we're going to be talking about, you know, American Heart Health Month, and but a lot of the ways that people can celebrate Black History Month is by listening to music.
Just listen to some music. You know, if you want to celebrate, you just listen to some music, and you will see the influence of those pioneers just woven through everything that we listen to today. So,
Well, you know, you've got me in the mood to go back and listen to some things, you know, some of the early stuff in rock and roll, and you know, to seek out some of these blues things. And I don't know why, but every time I get Howlin' Wolf in my mind, I just I can't get his voice out of my head. So, you know, I'm looking forward now to spending some of February listening to those songs.
yes, and listen to some of the jazz pioneers too, who are my musical heroes. To me, some of those jazz musicians, they were just as important to me as those classical composers from Europe. You know, when you talk about, you know, Miles Davis and Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker and Art Tatum, Oscar Peterson, those people were just absolutely astonishing musicians.
Yeah, I had a friend a while back who bought me a Charlie Parker CD, and they said it was remastered, but I got to tell you, it just sounded great. I think his nickname was the Bird or something like that, but
Yeah, he was.
he
Yeah.
was the Bird. And
Hmm.
I tell you, when they're just going, you can just get lost in the music.
Yeah, Clint Eastwood loved Charlie Parker. As a matter of fact, he loved the whole entire genre of jazz.
Oh, that is
So,
amazing. I did not know
yeah,
that.
he actually produced a movie about Charlie Parker.
Oh, I think I remember that.
Yeah. Hmm.
So everybody, if you get an opportunity, go out and listen to music this February and think about the origins of where it came from, because you know Ken is right. If you go back far enough in any of the music that you hear today, you're going to find not just the pioneers from, I don't know, the 90s, the 70s, the 50s, but you're going to find pioneers way back to those who are now responsible for the blues.
Absolutely.
Well, Ken, I think this is just fantastic. You know, I love the fact that that's what you focus on and that's your passion. You know, maybe sometime I need to get you to play something for me because I mentioned a couple times to, you know, people that I know that my nephew's a bit of a musician. He ended up being a bit of a savant. He plays like 7 instruments now,
Wow.
and he does a lot of you know, little concerts for people. And next summer he's going to be doing one with all Michael Jackson music. But I remember a couple months ago he did one with songs of the '70s. It was just amazing to listen to. So I want to hear you play some.
Yeah, I'd like to hear your nephew.
Well, you know, so Ken, every time I hear Mama Thornton's voice, it just kind of it hits me so hard. It just pierces right through to my heart. It's just so amazing.
Yes, absolutely. And the reason why it affects you that way is because of the emotions and the feelings. And a lot of those old pioneers in music, they sung about things that they experienced in their daily lives, the suffering and then the hardships and the things that they were going through on a daily basis that was tough. And all of those emotions and those feelings, they come through the songs that they sing. And you still find that through today when you listen to blues or some of those gospel songs or some of the jazz, the way they express themselves through those songs.
Well, nothing affects me more than when I hear a song and it really hits me emotionally. And a lot of the songs that you're talking about, a lot of the musicians that you're talking about really do. So thanks, Ken. But you know, once again, though, you're staying healthy. Your wife's doing okay. You all are, doing well.
Yes, we are. No complaints here. So we're doing well and thankful to still be alive. So
Well, you know, Ken, we've got a group of people that I think are going to be coming on in a couple months to talk about Juneteenth. And I think there's a thread that runs through all of these that I really find amazing. So maybe we'll see if you can be part of that group too. But if not, maybe you can just come on sometime and tell us what you do here at Copa Health, because the work that you do, and you've been here, what, 10 years now?
no, I've been here 14 years.
14 years. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you know, leave it to me to always shortchange somebody, but
It's okay.
I'd like you to come on sometime and, you know, talk about the things that you do. But hey, until next time, you know, take care.
Thank you. And you do the same, Norm.
All right. Thanks, Ken. Hey, everybody, that is our Copa Roundup for this week. Like I mentioned, next week, we are going to be celebrating February is Heart Health Month. It's something that every living creature has to take care of, because we all have hearts, and it's one of the things that is one of the biggest killers outside right now, COVID. But we are looking forward to seeing you all next week to talk about that. Until then, everybody stay safe. And like Ken, if you get an opportunity, go out and get your vaccination if you haven't already. And if you haven't already, get your flu vaccination. Everything is coming back strong. We just want to make sure that you all make it through, so that someday we'll be able to just sit all in a room together and listen to Ken play music. So until next week, everybody, take care, and we will see you soon.